give you my email address at the end as well. So please just email me and say, hello, I'm here. And then we do coffee. Okay. One of the other things that we looked at and developed is a student toolkit. Because remember, we're busy looking at adding layers to our current service because we've got no physical platform to work with. So we looked at a toolkit that consisted of basic therapeutic tools. Something that can help a student on his or her journey while they are experiencing some discomfort about a matter. Looking at strategies, looking at resources, anything that they can do themselves, to journey themselves. Looking at challenges that they might have, personal, academic, etc., and that they can start a process before they come to us. This toolkit we made available on Blackboard, which is our academic platform at the university, and it was also available in hard copy for those who could obtain it in that way. I've added some information there about the content, some of the topics we looked at. We did this according to all the statistics we found in our data regarding the reasons why students come to us. We looked at the themes and then we compiled the following chapters. Looking at things like, I think I hate my course. Where is my time going? I think sometimes I need the toolkit, ne? I don't know how to study. Ugh, I just can't deal with everything. I'm so stressed. Mindfulness, the art of being. I don't love me. I think I'm doomed to a life of loneliness. Everyone has partners but me. Why can't I just say no? My parents are driving me crazy. I'm going to share you some examples from the toolkit and show you how we do it per chapter. And I think one of the important things that we're trying to do with this is to make students realize that not everything in life is a catastrophe. Not everything in life is a crisis. Nee? I think we're at a point at the moment, and I'm not sure if you agree with me, but the moment when a student cries about a normal thing in life, the first thing people do is call the counselor. Call the counselor. Nee? Please. We cannot have students cry. But we need to have students cry. We need to cry. Nee? Not everything is a crisis. And I think the normalizing of having emotions, we've lost that somewhere. And I think that's one of the things that we need to give back to our students. Deal with your own emotions a bit and then come to us by all means. But we cannot immediately run to counseling for every little thing that's developmentally appropriate. Okay? So we need to discern in terms of that. So we try to do this. Okay, there's some chats here on the virtual platform. I fully agree with you. There's a lot of great work that we do in student support services that we do not publicize as much as we should, nee? Because we don't have the time. Because we're running around like mad people. Nee? It's like you said earlier on, the boundaries are blurred. This is not something of 8 to 5. I wish, nee? Students don't tend to do the things they do between 8 to 5. They more prefer 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Now this is the front page of the toolkit and some of the contents there. I'm going to share some of the chapters with you. This was written by the staff in our department and then graphically designed and fine-tuned. I just can't deal with everything. A chapter will then typically consist of some information at the beginning, trying to normalize what you're experiencing. This is okay, you know. Then looking at some tips. How can you deal with this? but really trying to make this as practical as possible. Also keeping in mind that we have students who cannot afford a luxury of things. So we need to be practical in terms of what we recommend. Do what you can't afford. We can't say to them, all of you come to the President Hotel and have a night's sleepover. I wish. Maybe just having to walk a bit outside. Getting out of your crowded environment where you can't even breathe or get your device to look at what's going on Blackboard. Just walk a bit and breathe. While we were in isolation or in the midst of the pandemic, I think so many things were just piled up in terms of emotions and trauma that students are struggling now severely with adjustment challenges. Some of them, we got calls that tell us, I haven't come out to my family yet, so I need to live in this whole bubble while I'm at home and I can't do it anymore. Please help me cope. Our students had to live in situations where there's domestic violence, where there's abuse, and they still had to do their assignments. They still had to attend virtual classes. So I think also, I can't remember who said it earlier this year, but they said that the big thing that our students need at the moment is compassion. And I agree with that. Because as much as we are struggling, our students are struggling as well. And to maybe just tell them sometimes, wow, I'm actually proud of you. Look at what you've achieved. Well done. Then when we look at the rest of the chapter, quotes like, you can't pour from an empty cup, take care of yourself first, and some practical tips. Write everything down. Start with one thing at a time, and then look at a practical solution. Make time to relax. One of the things that we struggled a lot with during this time was time management for students. Exactly as you said, because it's now online, they don't change classes, they don't move, they just sit. And the classes are 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11. And then during lunchtime, you realize, whoops, I didn't complete that assignment. So then you hope you have enough data to actually do that. And then the classes start again at 2. So where do we make time to relax? Also, if your university couldn't assist you with data, and your data was only available at, the night package from a certain time at night, then you stay awake until you can actually do that work. Then you try and finish it, and then you sleep 2 hours, and hopefully you can be awake in time. So I think all in all, we need to give them some medals. Some pages about relaxation. What relaxes you in these areas? To make them think really practically. This is simple, really practically. And then after each chapter, we give resources as well. Where can you get more information? I'm going to share another one with you. I think I hate my course. Don't we hear that quite often? The way I thought it would be and the way it is, not the same thing. So what do we do? What do we do? The best solution is not to go home and stop everything. Let's think about this first. Looking at normalizing it first, looking at the main reason why, what can possibly cause it. Maybe it was one bad day you had, which is very possible. Maybe it's that one subject that you cannot relate to. Trying to find out what it is. And when you find out what it is, what can we do about it practically? And where's your resources? Another one that I want to share with you, I don't love me. I think the big challenge for the students that we're working with is that they're in a developmental phase where they're experimenting with a lot of things. And they're also getting confronted with a variety of different thinking styles, different ways of doing things, different everything. Maybe you come from a small town, and now you're at a university, you've never seen so many people in your life before. They wear different things that you're wearing, they talk a different language, they talk about stuff you don't know. So where do you fit in? Eh? And where do I keep my self-value and my thinking of myself? Where do I keep that? So we often experience this, I'm sure you as well, where there's a really negative perception of the self. Looking at I don't love me, the inner voice that's talking to you the whole time. And this chapter focuses on a practical way to help you deal with that and to try and reduce that critical inner voice that's taken so much power over you. You'll see that we try to really guide them through a process, looking at where it comes from in normal language, not the big words that we get taught when we study. Looking at things they can commit to afterwards, almost like giving them homework. Nee? Commit to the following when you're trying to solve this. And list a few things that you appreciate about yourself. What are the things you're actually good at? What are the things you really love about yourself? One of the things that we're looking at, or that we're busy with developing now, because this is all and good, wonderful, it worked well during 2020 and 2021. I'll show you all the hits just now. But what now? So one of the things that we're working at the moment is to develop an app specifically for our department, so an SED app, which will be connecting to the Coetzee app, the university's app. And on that app, there will be small surveys to determine what the student's issue is. And let's say that issue is, I don't love myself anymore. Then the app will take you directly to this chapter, and you can start working there, along with resources. One of the other things that we're looking at the moment is to also revamp our total website, like delete it and starting from scratch. Because it needs to be an interactive tool that will help your students before they come to you. So I just wonder, when last have you had a look at your website? And how interactive is your website? Because if we look at the generation we're working with, that's their language. That is absolutely their language. They love being on the phones, nee? Or on a tablet, or something that's got little buttons they can work with. They love it. So if we actually have something that speaks their language, that will definitely make a difference in terms of the number of walk-ins we get. Our generation loves research. Nee? I'm sure you've experienced as well. They challenge you when you say something, and they say, but nah, I read that on Google, and I don't agree with you. Nee? So why don't we speak their language and reach out to them in a tool that they appreciate and understand? So if your website can be interactive, if it's got self-help resources in a way that's actually funky and nice to read, and if the hyperlinks actually work, nee? And if the things actually talk to one another, it can make a huge difference. Another system we are adding at the moment is ER24 as a trauma counseling service, 24/7. I'm not sure how many institutions have them at the moment, but we've got basically then our department, 8 to 5. I try my best that staff do not work after hours because I think they work really with enough hard stuff during the day. Then we've got the SADC phone, 24/7. But the one thing about SADC is they don't come out physically. They don't leave their offices. It's just a telephonic thing. So how do we make sure that we actually reach our students when needed? And the other thing as well about having a crisis after hours is most of the time that crisis needs a paramedic. It doesn't need a psychologist. If you look at your psychosis, if you look at a traumatic incident, if you look at sexual assault, a psychologist in that time cannot really add value, with all due respect. the student is too traumatized. They need physical and medical assistance ASAP. So if you can have ER24 going to that student 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and then giving a report back to the department before 8 that morning that you know where to follow up, then we're getting our layers in place. Okay. Do you agree with me? Does it make sense? And I think that at our counseling centers, we really need to think differently about the role that we play. And I think we need to maybe go on some meditation treat, and just sit and actually influence ourselves or remind ourselves that we cannot save everyone, first of all, and we cannot be there for everyone, first of all. It's not possible. So let's surround ourselves with the different layers and we build a multi-layered approach that's actually better for everyone. I think it would be better if I just died. I'm not sure what the number of, I hate that word, but successful suicides you've had the last bit, but it's definitely increasing on our side. And what we find is that the attempts are much more intentional, and when they're not successful the first time, then they just find another way, and they continue and they continue. And that's also a very challenging conversation that you need to have with your staff, because sometimes you can do everything you want, but if a person has decided, they've decided. And I think to really engage with your staff about that, because it can lead to really low morale, and it can really get your staff to a place that's, not a good place. Okay. So I think it would be better if I just died, and there's some examples of what we did. Any questions at this stage? Comments? I see a lot of nods. I see a lot of anything anyone wants to say. Are you still awake? Let's start with that. Nee. I say. Okay, great. That's a very good thing. Our virtual people, you still awake? Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Morning.
You had the presentation yesterday. Yeah.
Yes, so I'm quite relaxed today. Just two questions. Number one, when I take my students by the hand to PsychEd. I'm from UJ. And when I get there, some of the students have alerted me to the fact that when they get to the frontline person, they get asked, what is your problem?
Hey.
And we have raised it with PsychEd, but that sometimes is off-putting for them. So just your experience on that, that's the one. The second one is, when I follow up on them, they actually never go back. They go once. Okay. And they get scheduled appointments. I don't know the reason always for why they don't go. Some of them said, they're in class and they have to miss class to go for the appointment. So just your experiences on that two aspects. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think one of the most important things when you have a counseling center or a counseling department is the impression that students get when they walk in there. So it needs to be a user-friendly space. Your receptionist or receptionists or whoever you have in front need to be trained to actually relate to our students in a friendly manner. So the question, for example, what is your problem, is a no-go. Something like, thank you for coming, how can we help you this morning? Or explaining the process and say, listen, I'm going to ask you to maybe complete a form or two. Please sit down. At our department at the moment, I'm crazy for fizzers. Oh, I love fizzers. I don't eat them myself, but I give them to everyone in my life. So there's always fizzers at our department. We say, take a fizzer, sit down, chill. And then you do what you need to do. And I think that helps to normalize the fact that you came there, because we've got stairs to our offices. So just the guts to actually walk to our offices. Well done. I don't know when last you've been to a psychologist and you actually had to go there the first time. Dis erg. It's really not. It's erg. So to say to them, well done, nee? Embracing them, that they actually came. So I think I would definitely have a discussion then about the whole process. Also, I think one of the things that we can start thinking about is how do we also link with our students the moment when they come to our offices. We have now bought tablets, for instance, that our students can use there in the space while they're waiting, and then they can link to all our mental health resources, or they can Google that thing they wanted to Google, or, you know, just something that will make them feel, this is okay. This is actually just an extension of my university life. It's not this terrible place where the psychologists are in their offices and they read your mind. Nee, it's a normal, lekker space. Okay. Then your second question, I would definitely have a discussion then with the department to start looking at why do students not return. So what is the thing? Is it something we're missing? Is it students that were per accident just contained in one session? Or what is it that we're not following up on? Because yes, a lot of students come once and then they feel, okay, you know, I've tried this, it's not working for me. But also sometimes it's really a gel between that student and the person's psychologist. Sometimes they just don't gel, and that's okay. I don't like everyone, I'm sure you don't like everyone. And if you don't gel with your psychologist, you as a student have the right to say, can I please try someone else? Nee? So I would definitely, if I would, as a director, definitely would like to know if there's trends like that by us, that I can reach out to the students and I can understand what's going on. Okay. Here was another question. Whiskies, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr Coetzee. I'm from Walter Sisulu University. My question is, in a case where you get a student coming to you as maybe a lecturer or an ID, and then they tell you whatever they are going through, and you suggest to them that they go to the student counseling office and they refuse. And when I judge the situation, it's a lot. And I don't have expertise to say anything to the student. Can I maybe go to the student counseling office and maybe, I don't know, try to get them reach out to the student themselves if he or she doesn't want to go to their offices?
Thanks so much for that. That is indeed a tricky one. The board, the HPCSA, guides us very carefully about how we are allowed to reach out to students, etc. And the big thing about going for counseling or therapy is that the student needs to be accountable and the student needs to take ownership of that process and reach out. So what I would do in your circumstances is I would try and get the situation, again, normalized. And my apology for using that word so much today. But to try this to get the student to understand what's going on there, because I think most of the students don't understand what we do, and they really think that terrible things are going to happen in that office. To try and talk and see, listen, what do you know what they're going to do? Can we maybe share? Can I walk with you to student counseling? I'll wait for you until you're done, or can I get a friend to walk with you? Maybe you've got a RC or a RA that can help you, and bring them to me. Otherwise, what I do in some circumstances, most of the time lecturers will email me and say, listen, this and this happened, what do I do? Then I give them advice as far as I can, and if it's a crisis, if it's an emergency, then I will always reach out, always. The HPCSA can do what they want with me, but then I always reach out. I go and find that student, I GPS them. But otherwise, I get a partner in the process to help me. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to know, what if, okay, so I'm an academic advisor. So a student came to me who knew that a friend was actually suicidal. So this person is now dealing with the issues of the friend. So he didn't go and write, and he failed his assessment. He got a sick note. He didn't have a sick note. He had to come and explain why he couldn't write. So now it's a matter of, we are dealing with how do you now prep if you get a sick test. But now the reason for him not to write was as a result of a friend who was going through this dark process. And yes, as an academic advisor, again, I'm limited on what I can do. Then I did advise him to go to I'm also from UFS. And I'm sorry to air our dirty laundry here.
No, please air.
But he went and he got a bill of $100 from your department. And then he didn't go for follow-up. And he was also like called and hunted down for that $100. And he came back to me saying, ma'am, I had an issue with registering for 14,000 in the beginning of the year. Now I'm being called up and down by Coetzee Counseling asking me to come and pay $100. Like, really, do they even know that I'm still, hung up on how do I solve my 14K? $100 is nothing to me. And I don't even want to worry about that now. So I don't know, maybe in our context, some of the reason might be, I didn't even know there were bills sent to the students up until I heard from my student, so.
Didn't he perhaps go to Coetzee Health? Because we are for free.
Yes, but within that division. So I did say to him that is I can't counsel you on what you're going through, so go there. So which I believe he went probably to get counseling with you guys, but then he got a bill now that is preventing him to ever seek services there. And yes, we do also have a social worker, but she's taking our duties as a secondary post. So she only comes 4 till 6 for 2 hours.
Okay,
yeah.
Yes.
So the quickest for him would have been to go to campus rather than having to wait for the social worker and.
Thanks for that. Just so that everyone can understand our context, we are together in a wellness building. The ground floor is Coetzee Health, which is the medical staff, the nurses and the doctors and HIV, etc. And then we, student counseling, the psychologists, counselors, are on the second floor. We don't ask any fees, so we don't hunt down students for money. So I think he probably went to Coetzee Health. But I also want to ask you, if anything like that ever happens again, please email me. It's not acceptable. Then I will take them the R100 and we can get over with this. Okay, please. You can hear also that I'm very passionate about students and I'm very passionate about helping students. And when I hear stuff like that, I get so angry. It takes me up to here. Yes.
I just want to check as a follow-up to the question that was asked about your service reaching out to students. How integrated are we having these services to our communities where students come from? Because there's an emerging trend, I don't know if it is prevalent in your context. A student of NSFAS say that I'm stressed, can't afford 1, 2, 3. I've got to send my money, part of my money home. And that reflects to potential stressors, pressures that are coming from and material needs of our students, that I've got to share the money that the state has made available for me to study, got to share with my parents back at home. So literally my parents are stressing me, as you say, that they're driving me mad. They think that I've got a job and I don't. I'm surviving on a state grant. They're supposed, as a matter of fact, to leave me alone so that I complete my 4-year degree program and take them out of the conditions that they are in permanently. But here they are, each and every month they've got some sense of entitlement to my 1.5. How do we, through your service, because there are interventions in our society, integrate with those communities and start building a mentality or a mantra in our society that parents must leave the kids alone? I don't know how do we do it. I always ask myself, because we cannot pick up a call that this is a child who's presenting stress coming from a material need. Leave the child alone. I don't know how do we do that.
I agree with you. Thank you for raising that. It's indeed a very challenging matter. The parents think that this child needs to save them now from the cycle of poverty, and they think that there's so much money available at the university that there needs to be a monthly amount sent to them as well. And I think what especially our parents don't always understand is the big jump between high school and university, and just to be able to cope in that environment without having the additional stresses, as you mentioned. I have to survive on this money, everything is so expensive, nobody taught me how a budget works. How do I cope with this? What we're experiencing at the moment, especially on our Kwakwa campus, is that the parents, when there is some or other mental health incident especially, and we need to send the student home, the parents just say, we don't want him or her home. This is your problem. Sort it out. So even though we will pay the bus ticket or whatever way we need to get the student home, the parents just say, sorry, make a plan. We're not going to take the student. So I think we really need to think about how do we educate our parents, how do we reach out to our parents in a way that they understand and we can engage with them. If we look at our students at the moment, especially our NSFA students, we try to integrate our services as far as possible. We've got gardens with vegetables and fruit, etc. We try to give to them food parcels, we try to help, but there's only so much we can do. Our social worker, social support, etc. So thank you for raising that, and I agree. We need to have some kind of almost additional service at the university that can start engaging with our parents, because it's not going to get better soon. Okay, colleagues. What we found when we did some research about our toolkit is the most popular topics in that time was study skills, first of all, time management, secondly, career uncertainty, and then you can see the rest: relationships, sexuality, stress management, self-esteem. The third project I would like to share with you is our Wellbeing Warriors. What we did as an added layer during COVID is to foster mental health of students by building their resilience, during these times of uncertainty. So we added almost a library of resources, and we called it Wellbeing Warriors. So it was basically everything, from articles, videos, podcasts, a lot of self-help material that they can relate with. It was also sent to them via email, it was placed on Blackboard, it was on social media, it was everywhere. So if you feel that you need something, it was there. I put down a few articles if you wanted to look at it. One is, for instance, on lockdown, not knockdown. Protecting your mental health during the coronavirus pandemic. Anti-procrastination, being a time warrior. So you can hear the theme going on. What we found when we did research about the impact of this, we had 31 articles, 9 videos, 8 posters, and 6 podcasts. This page was the 32-second most visited web page on the UFS domain. So I think that's quite something. It received over 9,000 views, and 7,178 was unique page views, meaning that each visitor was only counted once. Most of the users spent an average of 4 minutes reading content on the page, which I think is excellent for the generation we're working with. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Nee? It's wonderful. And most of them access this page via their mobile phones. Okay. What was also very nice to hear was that these users shared the page to their social media accounts. So not only did we get 4 minutes, they shared it, colleagues, they shared it. Okay, so I think this is awesome. This is the way we presented it. You can see it's funky, it speaks to them, it's vibrant, it's visual. We also did some posters, as I mentioned. There's a nice one, concise, quick, brief. Okay. Now, how many students did we reach in this time? How did this work for us? In total, between 2020 and 2021, it was an 18-month period. Our student toolkit had over 4,000 hits. Wellbeing Warriors more than 7,000. We had 71 workshops or webinars during that time. We reached 2,000 plus. The SADC calls, we had more than 2,000 students reached. Individual sessions, 5,500. So when you look at that over 18 months, and this is a multi-layered approach, it's 22,000 students reached. And if you look at, we would have just done individual therapy, we would have reached 5,000. So do you hear where I'm going? Am I making sense on some weird level? Okay. Some of the lessons we learned, and I'm sure you can agree with me, awareness of mental health support is very much still a challenge. Students are not aware, they don't know what it means. And in our context, I'm sure some of you can agree, we have quite a challenge distinguishing between a mental health, for example, a psychotic episode, and the ancestral calling. How do you differentiate between the two? Because sometimes they present quite alike, and because the interventions that we need to have differs significantly for the two. Text messages and social media marketing strategies was much more effective than emails. Okay. Students don't like emails that much, I'm sure you know that. The importance of mental health should be on par with the rest of the student's life, meaning the academic life, the performance, the social, everything. It should be an equal wheel. Not everything is important and then we remember of mental health. Peer relationships, crucial. If I look at the different topics being discussed at this conference, you're talking a lot about this, we need to use the peer relationships to the utmost. We need to know our audience. Do we know our students? What works for me in terms of communication? Don't work for them. Definitely not. They don't want essays. They don't want long stuff. Short, precise, funky, vibrant, visual. Data. I don't think you know how much data you actually have in your centers or in your institutions. Please use that to your benefit. Discuss and reach out. We need to benchmark with others. We need to talk with others. We need to say, I'm actually struggling with this and it's okay. Let's learn from one another. Less is more. Let's look at what we can do with impact and try to cut away with all the different stuff. Do we really need to have 10 programs on that one topic? Maybe just one program per semester is enough. Can we pre-record most of our stuff and just put it on a website or a platform? Do we need to have live presentations all that time? So let's think strategically about how we use our staff. Because our staff needs to last quite a while, but they're not going to just double. This is about a 4-minute clip, and I wanted to share this with you. This was the department's experience of the last 18 months.
This is the story of mankind. Our beliefs, our struggles, our traditions, and our inspirations. This is the story of us. The devil whispered, "You cannot withstand the storm." The warrior replied, "I am the storm."
And the growth points have been that I've become more technology savvy. I've learned how to, work on Blackboard, create webinars, do therapy online, and the list goes on and on. I honestly enjoyed some of the things that I did during the COVID-19, which was doing articles and also learning how to do online videos. So it's very interesting. At some point, it was challenging when I first started, but along the way, I enjoyed it.
Colleagues, I think that summarized a journey of 18 months, and I think a lot of you can resonate with that. We had some comments here in the chat. Sibusiso said, yes, it's very important for us in student support services to look at basic training for our colleagues working outside the support services, so that they actually know what to do without inadvertently worsening the situation. Then also, if we want to look at trying to educate parents, we need to be educated about community challenges and the idea of being responsive institutions, which is anchored in the community. Thanks so much for that, Sibusiso. Colleagues, we've got about 4 minutes left, and then it's me standing between you and your tea and your coffee. Any questions you have at this stage? Anything you'd like to know? Any comments? Yes.
So it's more of a comment, but there might be a question that comes out.
Okay.
So as you were talking, I kept having this phrase go through my mind, sharpening my axe. I don't know if you know this analogy, but there are two woodmen working in the forest. Same amount of wood they've got to get through. The one guy goes at it, not taking a break, keeps going. The other guy takes frequent breaks. Come the end of the day, the one who has taken frequent breaks has actually done more than the woodman who kept going the whole day. When they get chatting, the one who kept going the whole day obviously can't understand this, so he says to the other woodman, "What's your secret?" And he says, I go off and I sharpen my axe. And then I come back and I return and I keep going. And for me, that's an analogy that resonates with everything you've talked about today. Sometimes it's not the academics that's the problem, it's everything else. We, as staff and our students, don't take time out to sharpen your axe. And what that means is maybe you need physical activity every day, but you feel you have too much work to do, so you don't go and sharpen your axe. You don't go and get physically active. And it's the same thing with accessing something like counseling services. In the same way that your kidney or your arm or your foot gets injured, your brain can be injured as well. And so I think it is important, as part of sharpening your axe, is to normalize. As much as you'd go to the doctor for a sore throat or for the flu, you can go to someone if your brain is in trouble. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so when I speak to students, I always come back to this metaphor about sharpening your axe. You need to take time out. If you're struggling, there's actually no worth in pushing through. As you mentioned earlier, get up, get physically active, breathe. So sharpen your axe. And I find that actually resonates quite well with students, because they can see that if you actually do take time out and you manage your time better, you can actually get a whole lot more done and be more productive than if you simply push through the pain, for what it's worth.
Thank you so much. I think you've summarized an hour and 10 minutes in 5 sentences. I'll call you next time beforehand. Any other comments, colleagues?
Thank you for your presentation. I think I just want to point to a resource on the National Resource Centre's website. So there was a ruralities project. I don't know if you know about it. It was a joint UK-South Africa project where students in rural areas, students at universities, were given tablets, and they were trained and they were asked to go and take pictures and videos of where they come from. And this resulted into a little booklet called Going to University, Stories from Rural Students. And it's available on the SANSC website. It's not one of our projects, but it's a really useful thing for both, because they've translated it into 9 South African languages. And this is for both the parents to help them understand what the experience is like for these rural students coming, but also for us as practitioners to understand what it means to come to university for a student from a rural area. So I just wanted to punt that, because I think that connection, you spoke about parents saying it's your problem, and I think the parents don't understand what these kids are going through often. So I just wanted to point that out to colleagues. Please go and have a look at that. It's under readings, I think. There's the Ruralities Project. Okay.
Thank you so much. Valuable resource, colleagues. Valuable. From my side, thank you very much. Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for sitting through this. It was wonderful to meet you. You've got my contact details. Please stay in contact. Have a lovely conference further.
We are going to stop an hour after this.
Yes. Nice, nice.
Morning, colleagues. My name is Munita Dunn-Coetzee, and I'm from the University of the Free State. I have the privilege this morning to start with you just after breakfast. Isn't that amazing? Ne? So I'm the next layer after your pancakes, your coffee, your yogurt. Awesome. So I'm going to try my very best to top that this morning. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to see people face to face again. We haven't done that in a while, eh? So it's wonderful to see eyes and mouths and noses. As you read in the bio, my name is Munita. I work at the University of the Free State. I started there on the 1st of December last year, so I'm still very new, and I'm the director at Student Counseling and Development. To our virtual colleagues, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here as well, and I'm going to try my best to include you as much as possible. I'm going to be speaking this morning about some lessons we learned during 2020 and 2021 as a team at the University of the Free State. I want to share some best practices with you. I want to share a student toolkit that we developed and the results we got from that. And I want to share some tips that worked for us. And I hope that this morning I can learn from you as well. So if you have any questions or comments, just raise your hand and we start talking. Please. I'm from the University of the Free State, and I just wanted to share some information with you about what we are and what we do. We aim to inspire excellence. We want to transform lives, as all of you do. And we're focusing on quality, we're focusing on impact, we're focusing on care. And I think especially when we look at these three words, it's very important in everything that we do as practitioners. And there's also a reason why you are here this morning. Okay, you know, it was a lovely breakfast, it is a lovely hotel, but you're here because you want to make your service to students more enriched with quality, impact, and care. The university was established in 1904. We've got 3 campuses, the Bloem one, South, and Kwakwa. We've got 7 faculties, currently just over 41,000 students. They tend to keep us quite busy. And our structure is divided into residences on campus, as well as day houses for our students that commute. I brought some pictures. I wasn't sure whether you actually know Bloemfontein. I didn't know anything before I started there. This is the entrance of our Bloemfontein campus. You'll see there's a lot of color, there's a lot of vibrance. This is our South campus. This is where we mainly have first years, and then they transition to the Bloemfontein campus, which of course has its own dynamic as well, because you're now for the second time a first year on a campus. And this is our Kwakwa campus. This is a very interesting phenomenon. This is the first time in my life that I have to drive 3.5 hours to get to a campus. So if you've got a 2-hour meeting, you drive there for 3.5 hours, you meet for 2 hours, and you drive back. I must say, we tend to test the speed limit when we drive back. Our Kwakwa campus has got a real spirit of its own, and it's a lovely experience to get to know how things are done differently in that space. Now, I'm at Student Counseling and Development, and what we do is we have teams on all 3 our campuses. And I think what was easier, and I'm sure all of you can relate to that, what was easier when we were working virtually is to connect with the team as you organize MS Teams or Zoom, you talk, and you're done. Now, when we're moving into a hybrid space, you need to make sure that all of your colleagues on your other campuses can actually be part of this. They can fully hear you, they can fully engage, they can actually respond. And when technology is against you, what do? We offer individual counseling, group counseling, career counseling. We've got a crisis intervention system. And we try to develop students via webinars and workshops as much as possible. I'm not sure what the feeling is at the moment at your institutions, But currently we feel like we're just in a reactive mode. We're not getting to the developmental work. I see a few nods. We're treating crisis after crisis, and the crises are becoming more severe and severe. And if I think of the last 3 weeks and how many times I heard the word suicidal, if I can get a cent for each of those, I would have been very rich this morning. So we're really in a different space in higher education, and I think this builds up to the counselling centres. Because isn't this the first thing that's mentioned the moment when there's been a crisis at a university? You know what, in the media, we did refer them for counselling. Our counselling centre is involved. We did immediately do something. And everything comes back to our counselling centres, to our support staff. And then I just wonder, what about the support staff? When do they reach their limit? I want to get an idea from you this morning. Where are you at the moment? When we talk about COVID, and we talk about, hopefully, post-COVID, let's be very optimistic, almost post-COVID, where are you at the moment in your institutions? How are things going? Please give me some feedback. Anyone, how are things going? Is it going wonderfully? Is everyone adjusting well? Everyone looks forward to coming to work because they need to dress. They can't stay in their pajamas anymore. Nee? What is it like? Yes, please. Do we have a rotating mic or? Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Munita, I'm Danny Fontaine. I'm from the University of Cape Town, so just around the corner. I would say from the staff side, I'll be brutally honest, staff are exhausted. Burnout is high. In my own space, things have fallen off my radar. And actually, it's been a good thing. We've just had a new dean start in our faculty, and a few things fell off my radar, which made its way to her. And it wasn't a pleasant experience for me to go through, but there's now a sense of actually just how much myself and others, not just me, but are struggling. So I would say burnout is high. There's a little bit of unsurety among staff now because we're kind of in this lull. Is this fifth wave going to have dire impacts for where we're currently at? We're very much operating under a hybrid model at the moment. Some faculties are fully face-to-face, others not. And I think students are still unsure because there isn't a lot of directive coming from executive because they don't know. You know, this changes on a dime. So there's a lot of anxiety among students. I would say there's burnout among students as well, because in as much as staff have been faced with jam-packed diaries, because I don't know what it's like for all of you, but I attend way more meetings than I ever have because I don't have to travel between campuses. So there's the expectation, you know, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 5:30. And it's true for students too. Like, courses have had to sort of up how much they engage with students, and I think students are also facing burnout. And the mental health challenges, certainly at our institution, are just off the charts. I mean, our student wellness services is overwhelmed, and it doesn't show signs of abating.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? I know there was another hand. Yo, please.
I'm Sianda from Forte. I think she said most of it. I was actually nodding yes for everything. I think it has been quite confusing for us because we are back on campus on a rotational day, and but there is a little bit of uncertainty and anxiety because you don't know what you're gonna get when you're there. You're worried at people popping in your office. And yes, we are exhausted. We usually say we don't think we've started even with 2022 stuff. We are still trying to finish up 2021, but we are already very exhausted. And the fifth wave is also confusing, whether are we going back home? Some people are happy that they are on campus. Like me, I'm fine on campus. Home was a little bit crowded, but there is just that fear of being unsafe. Some people feel we just want to work at home. We're more productive at home than in the office. Yeah, and the whole scenario of meetings ending late, because now we're working online, so you can have a meeting even goes after 6. So your day, well, academic days are never 8 hours, they're 24 hours anyway, but you just work with work throughout and sitting on meetings. So yeah, there is quite a lot of anxiety, a lot of, feeling exhausted. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sianda. I look at the comments of the virtual team. They say it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of work. Now, colleagues, when we look at what we heard just now, and we think of this feedback, then we need to also think we are the people that need to, most of all, support the students. We need to carry the students, but we ourselves are exhausted. So we need to urgently look at other ways of helping our students so that not every single one on our campuses come to our doors and say, I'm in a crisis. So we need to have a multi-layered approach. We need to have a multi-layered way of thinking about what we do. And if I look at what we're experiencing at the offices at the moment, is that we were so busy throughout 2020 and 2021. We were so busy populating the online presence that now, being in a hybrid model as well, it's like you cannot find your balance. It feels to us at the moment that we're doing much more than in the previous times, and we can't distinguish what's important and what's not. And this is definitely taking its toll on our staff. I mentioned a few things there, you've already mentioned it all. I think the big thing for us is, what does support at the moment look like? What do we need to focus on? And how do we actually take our staff with us in this process of supporting our students? This is UCT's mental health policy, an article that they published a while back, 2019. And I think this is actually essential to look at today. From a health service framework, some UCT stakeholders argue that it is unrealistic to expect universities to provide a substitute mental health system capable of plugging the enormous gaps in state service provision. In UCT's case, this would entail providing mental health services that can cater for a population of about 27,000 students, with little augmentation from the state health sector, if at all. In the current climate of the shrinking government funding for universities in South Africa, allocating more funding to student mental health means that resources may have to be diverted from other transformation imperatives in higher education. And I think the challenge at the moment is that this is not happening. It's not happening. So what does that leave us? Where does it leave us? And how do we cope? I want to share 3 initiatives with you today that we implemented throughout the peak times of COVID, and I want to share the results with you as well. And I hope that this will open a conversation today that we can start talking about this and really engage. How do we get our students from surviving to thriving? Because during 2020, 2021, we had no physical interaction with them. Our usual traditional platform vanished, and it didn't vanish over time, it vanished immediately. That evening when our president says, now it's time, there was no time to prepare. There was no time to suddenly order that laptop that you wanted to order for that person, whose laptop is just so slow. And you just thought, let's just save a bit on the budget, let's just save. And then suddenly you couldn't. We had to think of something that was 24/7 available on the chosen device of the student, if the student was lucky enough to have a device. we needed to think of something that would empower students, and we had to keep in mind not looking at crisis intervention, but looking at a preventative mode of working. The 3 things I'm going to share with you today is, first of all, our mental health carefree line that we started with SADC. I want to share that results with you. The student toolkit that we developed, and then also our project called Wellbeing Warriors. The UFS Student Mental Health Care Line was initiated in 2020, and we got external funding for it from the MSDF grant, which we were absolutely grateful for, because we had to implement an additional strategy to actually get to all our students. Our staff was not able to get to everything. It was 24/7, it's toll-free, they can phone it, they can immediately get help, they can also SMS, they can email, and then someone will phone them within 2 hours. This is for all our registered students, of course on all 3 campuses. But the one thing when we started this campaign was, how do we make sure our students know about this? It's wonderful if we can say to the rectorate, we implemented a line, but how do we make sure they know? And I think this is the one thing that we in support staff are not always as good at. We're not so good with the marketing. We're not marketing experts. And I think that's one of the people that we actually need to get on our team in the current platform that we're working at. You need marketing people on your team. So we had a dedicated colleague looking at the marketing of this initiative, and it had 2 aims, basically, 2 objectives. First of all, to see that we can increase the number of calls we received, and secondly, that we can increase the number of males that phone and use the care line. So we had a pre-post intervention, we had a post intervention, and we could actually share some lovely data with you this morning. What was interesting, when we looked at the marketing, we had the 2 objectives. So some of the marketing was aimed at our males, some of the marketing was just an overall increase. And what we tried is we looked at a role modeling campaign where we used some of our males in the executive to say, come and share some of your experiences. There's an example, for example, our rector, Professor Francis Peterson, and he said, be a man, take responsibility for your mental health. I exercise regularly, it helps me keep my stress levels at an optimal level. And what was interesting, when we started tracking the data and we looked at how it influenced the calls, the top management that we used for this marketing didn't make such a huge difference. The students struggled to identify with those role models. The most feedback and interaction and engagement we got with regards to the marketing was when we used a normal guy. That's more or less the age of our students. You can see there, he was a law graduate, and he's advocating for mental health. That's his passion in life. And he said, whenever I feel overwhelmed, anxious or uncertain, I remind myself to be gentle with myself, etc. Our stats peaked because the students could actually identify with this. This is someone that actually looks like them, he speaks like them, he speaks a normal language, he's not wearing a suit, eh? And we could definitely see the difference. When we looked at increasing our students' health-seeking behaviors, we wanted to make sure that we can get the right data so that we can actually show people this works. Because remember, our external funding is only for a little bit. Then we need to get the university to pay a bit more. And I think that's also one of the things that in support services we sometimes forget to do. We know that we're good. We know that we make a difference. But to just go to your top management and tell them, hello, we're good, we're changing lives, they're not going to give you the money, I'm sorry. They want figures. They want black and white. They want hardcore data. Then they will listen to you, because that's their language. So what we found between the pre and the post is that with the deliberating marketing strategies, and this included everything. We had nudge SMSs, we had flyers, we had social media, emails, radio, etc. And we could actually see an increase in the times that we did this. An increase in terms of our male callers and an increase in terms of the callers overall. This is one of the marketing strategies that we used.
All of us have moments when life is complicated. All of us have fears, worries, doubts, dreams, and hopes. All of us have weaknesses and strengths, fail and succeed, feel up and feel down. Although we have so much in common, we may sometimes feel very alone. Don't suffer in silence. You are not as alone as you might feel. Speaking up and taking care of your mind and body is essential to your mental health. Don't delay. Take small actions today. Exercise. Journal your thoughts and feelings. Get regular 8 hours of sleep. Do planning and set goals. Learn something new. Go for a walk. Meditate or ask for academic and social support. And sometimes you just need someone to talk to. Reach out. The UFS Student Mental Health Care Line is exclusively available to all UFS students 24/7 and with no call costs.
Doesn't it make you feel like you want to phone? Nee? You just want to phone right now. Nee? Isn't it amazing? Now this is what I mean when we talk about marketing. When you look at your team, get that someone that can help you a bit, because this is actually going to help you filter all those walk-ins at your offices. What we also determined throughout this project is with the care line, it reduced the number of students being referred back to us. Only about 20 to 30% of them were referred back to us, meaning that between 70 to 80% of those students could be contained in one phone call. And that makes a huge difference. We're also in a space where we're not going to get more posts at our counselling centres or our support staff centres very soon. There's just no funding for that. So we need to look at external initiatives or additional initiatives to help us do the work. When I look at the marketing strategy that we used, this was intentional and it made a difference. So how can we use this in the wider population to actually make everyone's lives a bit better? The second thing I would like to focus on today is our student toolkit. Before we start with that, I'm going to do a bit of an exercise just to get you moving. Okay. I know I hate this when people do it to me, so I apologize in advance. I'm going to ask you to please stand where you are. If possible, please stand. That we can just get the blood flowing a bit and work off those pancakes. Okay. Now I'm going to ask a question, and if it's true, you must please sit down again. Is that all right? Please remember, this is not compulsory. If you're not in the mood, you can sit anyway. Nee. It's your choice. This is the 7th year that we're having this conference. Whose first time is it now? Who's here for the first time? Okay. Our virtual colleagues, some of you sitting as well? Okay. Who of you have attended 5 of these conferences already? 5. If you've attended 5, please sit.
And then ask to stand.
Yeah. Who of you went jogging this morning? If you jogged this morning, please sit down. Okay, no jogging this morning. And then the last question. Who of you have been to Bloemfontein? If you've been to Bloemfontein, say. Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you, colleagues. The second thing I would like, thank you so much. I see our virtual colleagues are telling me that they've been to Bloemfontein. I'm very impressed. Please also know that this is an open invitation. We've got the best coffee at our offices in Bloemfontein, so you're always